Hey guys, tonight we are going to set aside the clash of steel and the dramatic last stands you see in the movies. We're traveling to a much quieter, more intense, and frankly much more boring version of feudal Japan. Imagine a world where the way you hold your chopsticks carries more weight than how you hold your sword, a world where a misplaced fan could cause a diplomatic incident. We are diving into the deeply intricate, soothingly dull, and mind-numbingly specific rules of etiquette that govern the life of a peaceful samurai. Honestly, you probably wouldn't last a day. Not because you'd lose a duel, but because you'd accidentally enter a room with the wrong foot first and bring shame upon 3 generations of your family. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. I always find it fascinating to see where everyone is drifting off from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. There is no alarm clock. There is no jarring ringtone pulling you from the depths of sleep. Your first awareness is of a subtle shift in the light. A pale, milky gray glow begins to filter through the delicate paper of the shoji screen that serves as your wall. It is the gentle, non-negotiable announcement of dawn. You are lying on a simple futon, a thin cotton mattress laid directly on the floor of woven tatami mats. The air is cool and still carrying the faint, clean, grassy scent of the straw mats that is the signature perfume of a traditional Japanese room. The first rule of your day is this: you do not jolt awake. You do not groan or stretch with a loud yawn. Waking is not a chaotic accident. It is a mindful, deliberate process. You simply become aware of the new day and you accept it in silence. You are a samurai, but this is the Edo period, the great peace that lasted for over 250 years. Your grandfathers may have fought in epic battles, but your reality is one of peace and administration. You are part of a warrior class that has been transformed into a caste of bureaucrats, scholars, and landed gentry. The raw, violent energy of your ancestors has been sublimated, channeled into the relentless pursuit of perfection in everything you do. And that pursuit begins now. With a single fluid motion, you push yourself up. Not by flailing, but by placing your hands flat on the futon and rising into a formal kneeling position, seiza. Your back is perfectly straight. Your hands rest palms down on your thighs. Your eyes are cast slightly downwards. This is your first moment of the day, a moment of quiet stillness. It's not about prayer in a Western sense. It's about centering yourself, acknowledging the transition from the formless world of sleep to the highly structured world of your waking life. Your mind is calm, clear, and empty. You might briefly consider the dreams of the night. This brings us to a quirky tidbit of samurai life, the importance of the Hatsuyume, the first dream of the new year. To dream of Mount Fuji, a hawk or an eggplant, was considered the height of good fortune for the year to come. While not every dream on every night carried such weight, the content of your dreams was still seen as a subtle indicator of your spiritual or physical state, something to be noted and then released, not analyzed like a modern therapy session. From your kneeling position, you rise. Again, this is an act of supreme control. You do not use your hands to push off the floor. You simply flow from a kneeling to a standing position, a quiet demonstration of the physical discipline that underpins your entire existence. Every movement must be imbued with grace and purpose. Now you face the shoji screen. To open it, you do not simply shove it aside. You kneel once more. You place your hands on the wooden frame, one hand near the pull, the other lower down for stability. You slide it open just enough to pass through a smooth, silent motion that makes no sound. You have now officially greeted the day. You step out onto the Engawa, the narrow wooden veranda that runs along the outside of the house. The cool, smooth wood feels solid beneath your bare feet. Before you is not a bustling cityscape, but a small, enclosed garden. It might be a karasansui, a dry landscape garden of meticulously raked white gravel, a few carefully placed rocks, and some moss. There is not a single blade of grass or a fallen leaf out of place. It is a perfect, controlled, miniature landscape. It is a reflection of your own inner world, or at least the inner world you are expected to project calm, orderly, and beautiful in its austerity. Historians still argue whether this intense focus on ritualized daily actions was a genuine expression of Zen Buddhist philosophy, which was deeply influential among the samurai class, or if it was primarily a form of social conditioning. Was this endless etiquette a path to enlightenment, or was it a tool used by the Tokugawa shogunate to keep a class of highly trained, potentially restless warriors occupied and pacified through a culture of obsessive self-control? The answer is likely a complex mix of both. The sun is not yet visible, but the sky is brightening. The air is crisp. You stand on the veranda, taking a slow, deep breath. The day hasn't truly begun, you haven't washed, dressed, or eaten, but you have already navigated a dozen unspoken rules of posture, movement, and mindfulness. The real battlefield of your life is not a muddy field, but the quiet, unforgiving tatami mat of social expectation. And the first skirmish has been won. Having greeted the dawn from the veranda with appropriate stillness, you turn back inside. The next phase of your morning is dedicated to hygiene and grooming, a process as ritualized and precise as everything else you do. This is not about a quick, sloppy splash of water. It is a methodical purification, preparing your physical form for the day with the same care you used to prepare your mind. You move silently through the cool, quiet corridors of your house to the washing area. This isn't a dedicated bathroom in the modern sense. It might be a small stone-floored room near the back of the house, or simply an area of the veranda with a drainage system. Here you find a large ceramic basin, a wooden bucket of fresh cold water drawn from the well this morning by a servant, and a small ladle. You kneel before the basin. Using the ladle, you pour water into your hands and wash your face. The water is bracingly cold, a shock that sharpens the senses and brings a clear-minded focus. There is no soap for your face. The process is about the clean, simple act of rinsing away the traces of sleep with pure water. Every motion is deliberate without splashing or unnecessary noise. Next, you attend to your teeth. You reach for a small, simple tool, a fusayoji. This is your toothbrush, and it's a fascinatingly clever piece of disposable technology. It is a small willow or hazel twig, one end of which has been frayed and softened by being pounded or chewed, creating a brush of fine wood fibers. The other end is sharpened to a point, acting as a toothpick. There is no toothpaste. You might dip the frayed end into a small container of fine salt to act as a gentle abrasive and disinfectant, but often it's just the wood fibers and water. You use the brush end to scrub your teeth and gums with brisk, careful strokes. Then you use the pointed end to meticulously clean between each tooth. This is a mainstream practice across many classes in Edo Period Japan. Good dental hygiene was surprisingly important, not just for health, but for aesthetics. However, this brings us to a quirky and rather startling fringe practice, one you are glad you don't have to follow. While you are keeping your teeth clean and white, many married aristocratic women, particularly in earlier periods but with the tradition continuing, practiced ohaguro, the custom of dyeing one's teeth black. The process was laborious. A woman would paint her teeth daily with a foul-smelling dark brown solution made from iron filings dissolved in vinegar and mixed with vegetable tannins. The resulting lacquer would create a beautiful pitch-black smile, which was seen as a mark of beauty, maturity, and marital fidelity. It also incidentally had the benefit of helping to prevent tooth decay. To our eyes, it's a shocking aesthetic, but in its cultural context, a smile of gleaming white teeth on a married woman could be seen as unattractively animalistic or juvenile. Your clean, undyed teeth are a subtle marker of your status as a male samurai. Historians still argue about the true origins and meaning of ohaguro. Was it a purely aesthetic choice, the equivalent of modern makeup? Was it a social signifier to clearly distinguish married women? Or did it have deeper, more symbolic roots related to the Japanese appreciation for things that are not overtly bright or showy, a love for the subdued beauty of shadow and darkness? The practice was complex and layered with meaning that is still debated today. Having finished with your teeth, you spit discreetly into the drainage area. You then use a small soft cotton or linen cloth, a tenugi, to dry your face and hands. This cloth is an incredibly versatile part of your daily life. It serves as a towel, a washcloth, a handkerchief, and can even be used to wrap small items. The final step of your grooming is to ensure your appearance is impeccable. You use a small, polished bronze mirror, not a perfect glass mirror, but one that gives a slightly soft, burnished reflection, to inspect your face. You ensure your eyebrows are neat and that there are no stray hairs. Your appearance must be one of scrupulous, almost severe cleanliness. There is no room for messiness or neglect. It would be a sign of a disordered mind, a lack of self-discipline that would bring shame upon you. Your morning ablutions are complete. It was a simple, quiet ritual using only the most basic of tools, water, a stick, and a cloth. Yet it was performed with a level of focus and precision that transforms a mundane act into a small ceremony. You have purified your body, attended to the details, and are now ready to begin the next intricate process, putting on the many layers of your daily attire. Your face is clean, your teeth are scrubbed, and your mind is clear. You are a blank, prepared canvas. Now it is time to apply the first layers of your daily identity, the foundational garments upon which the rest of your formal attire will be built. This is not the simple act of putting on underwear. This is the beginning of a deliberate construction of your public self, and every layer has its place and its purpose. You return to your room where your clothing for the day has been laid out, likely by your wife or a servant. The futon you slept on has already been neatly folded and stored away in a large closet, the oshier leaving the tatami-matted floor clean and open. The room is a minimalist stage, and you are the sole actor. The first garment you reach for is the fundoshi. This is the traditional Japanese loincloth, the fundamental undergarment for men. Forget the tailored, elasticated briefs of the modern world. The fundoshi is a long, single piece of cotton or linen cloth. Putting it on is a skill in itself, a kind of simple origami performed on the body. You take the long strip of fabric, pass it from front to back between your legs, and then wrap the ends around your waist, tying them securely. There were several different styles of fundoshi, each with its own wrapping method, from the simple and practical to the more complex. The one you wear is likely the echu fundoshi, a common style that is both secure and relatively comfortable. This garment is the most basic mainstream piece of underwear in Japan, worn by everyone from farmers to daimyo. It is practical, hygienic, and simple. Once the fundoshi is secured, you move on to the next layer, the juban. The juban is a type of underkimono, a simple robe, usually made of plain white cotton or silk. It serves a very important practical purpose. It keeps your expensive outer kimono clean. Your sweat and body oils will be absorbed by the washable juban, protecting the delicate, often hand-dyed silk of the garment you wear on top. It's the 17th century equivalent of a t-shirt worn under a dress shirt, a functional barrier between you and your valuable clothing. You slip on the juban. It feels cool and soft against your skin. You wrap the left side over the right. This is a non-negotiable rule. Wrapping the right side over the left is reserved exclusively for dressing the bodies of the dead for burial. To do so on a living person would be a shocking and deeply ominous mistake, a terrible omen that would cause scandal. It's a simple rule, but one with the weight of life and death behind it. You secure the juban with a simple narrow sash called a datemaki. This is tied snugly around your waist, keeping the underrobe in place and creating a smooth cylindrical shape for your torso. The ideal samurai silhouette is not one of bulging muscles or a narrow waist. It is a straight, solid, and dignified line. The juban and datemaki are the first steps in creating that shape. And here we come to a quirky and slightly intimate detail of samurai underdress. While your juban is likely plain white, some samurai, particularly in the later, more flamboyant periods of the Edo era, would wear incredibly ornate and lavishly decorated juban. They might be made of brightly colored patterned silk, featuring elaborate designs of dragons, tigers, or scenes from mythology. This was a form of hidden luxury. Outwardly, your appearance was one of severe, somber simplicity, but underneath you might be wearing a secret, extravagant work of art that only you and perhaps a very select few would ever know about. It was a private rebellion against the strict sumptuary laws that often dictated what colors and materials you were allowed to wear publicly. Historians still argue about the extent to which these hidden luxuries were a form of personal expression or a subtle political statement. Was a samurai with a flamboyant juban simply a dandy, a man with a taste for fine things? Or was it a quiet act of defiance, a way of signaling that while he conformed to the shogun's rules on the outside, his inner spirit remained untamed and individualistic? It's a fascinating glimpse into the psychology of a class that was defined by conformity. Your own juban today is simple white cotton. You are a man of discipline and tradition, not one for hidden frivolities. Your undergarments are purely functional, designed for cleanliness and to create the proper foundation. The final preparatory layer is your socks, the tabi. These are not simple tubes of fabric. They are ankle-high, split-toed socks designed to be worn with your thonged sandals. They are usually made of white cotton and are fastened with a series of small metal clasps at the back. You put them on the separated big toe, feeling strange but correct. You now stand dressed in your foundational layers. You are a blank canvas of white cotton from your ankles to your neck. The fundoshi, the juban, the datemaki, the tabi, they are all in place. You are not yet a samurai in the eyes of the world, but the first crucial steps have been taken. The inner structure is complete. Now you are ready for the armor of peace, the kimono and hakama. You are now a figure of plain white cotton, a blank slate prepared by the foundational layers of your undergarments. The structure is set. It is time to don the outer garments, the layers that will publicly define your status, your taste, and your adherence to the rigid social order. This is the armor of peace, the formal attire of a samurai in an era where courtly duties have replaced battlefield commands. You begin with the kimono, or more accurately for a man of your class, the kosode. This is the main robe, the centerpiece of your entire outfit. It is likely made of high-quality silk or fine linen in a color that is subdued and dignified. Think deep indigos, serious browns, or shades of gray. Bright, Flashy colors are for actors, merchants, or low-ranking youths. Your garment speaks of sober authority. You shrug on the kasode, letting the long, rectangular sleeves fall to your wrists. The silk feels cool and impossibly smooth. Just like with the juban, you perform the crucial act of wrapping the left side over the right. This rule is absolute, a fundamental piece of grammatical syntax in the language of clothing. Getting it wrong is not a simple fashion faux pas. It is a statement of profound ignorance or ill omen. Now you must secure the kasode with the most important and visible accessory you will wear, the obi. For a man, the obi is a relatively narrow sash, much narrower than the elaborate and decorative ones worn by women. It is still, however, a substantial piece of fabric, perhaps made of silk, brocade, or heavy cotton. The knot is key. You wrap the obi around your waist over the date maki that holds your juban in place and tie it. The knot is not a simple bow. It is a specific prescribed knot tied low and at the back or slightly to the side. The most common knot for a man is the kainokuchi knot, which is flat, compact, and secure. It must be tight enough to hold everything in place, but not so tight as to be uncomfortable or restrict your breathing. A sloppily tied obi is a clear sign of a sloppy, undisciplined man. With the kasode and obi in place, you are technically dressed. This is the basic attire for many men in Japan, but you are a samurai. You require another layer of formality, another garment to signify your elevated rank. You require the hakama. The hakama is a type of large pleated trouser or divided skirt worn over the kasode. It is a garment steeped in history and symbolism, a direct link to your warrior heritage. You step into it, pulling the voluminous fabric up to your waist. Securing the hakama is a complex process involving 4 long straps or himo. You bring the front straps around to your back, crossing them over and bringing them back to the front, where you tie them in a neat, secure knot below your obi. Then you take the back section of the hakama, which has a stiff trapezoidal board called a koshi-ida, to support your lower back and bring the back straps around to the front. These are tied in a beautiful, decorative, and deeply symbolic knot over the first set of straps. This knot is not just functional, it is an art form. Its neatness and precision are on public display, a testament to your discipline and attention to detail. This is the mainstream attire for a samurai performing his daily duties. The kimono and hakama combination, known as kamishimo, when paired with a special vest, was the official uniform of your class. But here is a quirky detail that speaks volumes about samurai culture. The hakama has 7 pleats, 5 in the front, 2 in the back. According to some traditions, these 7 pleats represent the 7 virtues of Bushido, the samurai code: ji justice, yu courage, jin benevolence, rei respect, makoto honesty, meiyo honor, and chugi loyalty. So every time you put on your hakama, you are in a symbolic sense clothing yourself in the very virtues that are supposed to define your existence. It's a powerful daily reminder of the ideals you are expected to embody. Historians still argue about the practical origins of the hakama. Was it originally designed for horse riding with the wide legs, protecting the wearer from brush and making it easier to mount a horse? Or did its voluminous folds serve a more subtle purpose in combat on foot, disguising the movement of the feet and making it harder for an opponent to predict your next move? In your peaceful era, these practical considerations are long gone. The hakama is now purely a symbol of your status. It separates you from the common merchant or farmer who would not be permitted to wear such a garment. You look down at yourself. The crisp pleats of your dark blue hakama fall perfectly to your ankles. Your obi is a sliver of contrasting color beneath the decorative knot of the hakama straps. Every line is straight, every fold is precise. You are no longer just a man. You are an embodiment of a social order, a pillar of the establishment. Your clothing is your uniform, your statement, and your cage. It is heavy, it is layered, and it is correct. The armor of peace is now fully assembled. You stand fully dressed in your kimono and hakama, a portrait of sober, structured dignity. The layers of fabric are a familiar weight on your body, but the transformation is not yet complete. The final crowning touch, a detail that is arguably the most important signifier of your samurai status, is your hair. You move to a small dressing area, where a polished bronze mirror and a set of combs and waxes are laid out on a low table. For a samurai of the Edo period, hair is not a matter of personal style or fashion. It is a strict, non-negotiable part of your uniform. You will wear your hair in the shonmage. The shonmage is the iconic top-knot hairstyle that we immediately associate with the samurai, but creating it is a painstaking daily ritual that requires precision, patience, and a steady hand. You cannot do it yourself. This is a task for your wife, a trusted servant, or if you are a very high-ranking daimyo, a dedicated professional attendant. You sit in the formal seiza position, your back straight as the attendant begins their work. The first step is to comb your hair until it is perfectly smooth and untangled. The combs are beautiful objects often carved from boxwood or bamboo. A special thick pomade or wax called bintsuke abura is then applied. This wax, similar in consistency to a very firm hair gel, is what will hold the complex style in place all day. It has a unique, slightly sweet and oily scent that is part of the background aroma of your daily life. Once the hair is thoroughly waxed, the shaping begins. The hair on the top of your head has been shaved. This is a key feature of the chamage style. The attendant carefully gathers all the remaining hair from the back and sides and pulls it back tightly into a single high ponytail. This ponytail is then meticulously folded forward over the shaved pate, creating a neat flat gun hammer shape that lies against the top of your head. The very end of the ponytail is then tied off with a delicate paper or string cord securing the entire structure. This is the mainstream, universally recognized hairstyle of your class. To be a samurai was to wear the chanmage. A samurai who for some reason had to cut his top knot, an act known as danpatsu, was signaling a profound change in his life, often a retirement from his duties or an entry into the priesthood. It was the equivalent of a modern soldier shaving his head or a CEO trading his suit for sweatpants. It was a powerful public declaration. Now for a quirky and slightly painful sounding tidbit about the shaved pate. Why did they do it? The most common theory is that it was originally a practical measure. Wearing a heavy, hot, and often sweaty helmet or kabuto in battle was uncomfortable. Shaving the top of the head helped to reduce heat and irritation under the helmet. It was in essence a form of ventilation. But in your peaceful era, you will likely never wear a kabuto. The helmet is gone, but the haircut remains fossilized in tradition. You endure the daily ritual of having your pate shaved with a sharp razor, not for comfort, but for the sake of history. Historians still argue about the subtle variations in chanmage styles and what they signified. The thickness of the top knot, the exact angle at which it was folded, and the height at which it was tied could all subtly indicate a person's age rank or even their home domain. It was a complex and nuanced language of hair that is now largely lost to us. An expert in your own time could likely glance at another samurai's top knot from across a room and know a surprising amount about him. It was a social CV worn on top of the head. The attendant makes the final adjustments, ensuring every hair is perfectly in place, the waxed surfaces gleaming smoothly in the soft light. The chanmage feels tight and secure, a familiar and reassuring weight. It pulls the skin of your face taut, giving you a sharp, severe, and impassive expression. This is part of its purpose. The hairstyle itself encourages a look of stoic composure. You are now complete. From the split-toed tabi on your feet to the perfectly waxed top knot on your head, every single element of your appearance has been carefully constructed according to a strict and ancient code. You look in the bronze mirror. The man looking back at you is not just you, the individual. He is a living embodiment of the samurai class, a symbol of the Tokugawa shogunate's power, and the enduring legacy of the warrior code. Your face, your hair, your clothes, they are no longer your own. They belong to your role. And now you are ready to put on the final and most important part of your identity, your swords. Your physical transformation is complete. You are a pillar of prescribed formality, from your immaculate top knot to the precise pleats of your hakama. Now you approach the tokonoma, the recessed alcove that is the spiritual center of the room. Here, resting on a special stand, a katana kake, lies the final and most critical element of your identity. It is the one thing that above all else proclaims to the world who and what you are. It is your daisho. The daisho, which literally translates to big little, is the matched pair of swords that is the exclusive right and symbol of the samurai class. No merchant, no matter how wealthy, and no farmer, no matter how powerful, is permitted to wear this pair. It is your badge of office, your status symbol, and the very embodiment of your soul. The pair consists of the katana, the long sword with its elegant curved blade, and the wakizashi, the shorter companion sword. Together, they are not just weapons. They are a work of art, a family heirloom, and a sacred trust. You do not simply grab them and go. The act of putting on your swords is a ritual filled with reverence and a complex unwritten syntax. You approach the stand. First you take the wakizashi. You hold it with both hands, a sign of respect for the blade. You thread it carefully through your obi, the wide sash at your waist. The sword is positioned on your left hip with the cutting edge facing upwards. This is a crucial detail. Storing and wearing the sword edge up helps to protect the fine, razor-sharp edge from dulling against the inside of the scabbard, or saya. It also allows for a faster, more fluid draw should the unthinkable need arise. Next, you take the katana. As the longer and more important of the two blades, you handle it with even greater care. You slide it through the obi just above the wakizashi. It too is positioned with the cutting edge facing up. The two swords now rest snugly against your body, nestled one above the other. The angle at which they are worn is not random. They should be angled slightly forward following the curve of your body. A samurai whose swords are sticking out horizontally looks clumsy and aggressive. Your swords should be a natural extension of your body integrated into your form, not just strapped on as an afterthought. This is the mainstream, universally understood way for a samurai to wear his swords. The sight of the daisho tucked into an obi was the single most powerful visual cue in the entire social landscape of Edo Japan. It commanded immediate respect and deference. Now for a quirky and incredibly important piece of sword etiquette. The way you wear your swords can send subtle and not so subtle signals. When you are in a familiar or friendly environment like your own home or the home of a close ally, you might wear your daisho with the hilts or tsuka pointing more towards your right side. This makes it slightly more difficult and slower to draw the swords with your right hand. It is a non-verbal signal of trust. It says, I am relaxed in your presence and do not feel the need to be on high alert. Conversely, if you were to wear them angled sharply to the left with the hilts pushed forward and ready, it would be seen as a sign of aggression or distrust, a deeply insulting gesture in a peaceful setting. It's the 17th century equivalent of showing up to a dinner party with your hand resting on your holstered pistol. Historians still argue about how much of a samurai's daily life was dictated by the practical presence of these swords. Did the constant weight on their left hip affect their posture and gait? Did the need to navigate crowded streets and doorways without their long scabbards bumping into things create a unique kind of spatial awareness? The swords were not just symbolic, they were a constant physical reality that shaped every move a samurai made. The phrase, to not get along, sori ga awanai, literally translates to, the curvatures of the scabbards do not match, a possible reference to the clashing of swords when two incompatible samurai walk together. You adjust the daisho one last time, ensuring the sajo, the decorative cord attached to the scabbard, is neatly tied and tucked away. The weight of the two swords on your hip is not a burden. It is a comfort. It is a physical reminder of your lineage, your responsibilities, and your place in the world. It completes you. Without your swords, you are just a man in a kimono. With them, you are a samurai. You are now finally ready to leave your room and face the day. Every element is in place, from the top knot on your head to the soul of the warrior resting at your side. The process has been long, meticulous, and filled with 1,000 tiny rules. But it is this very process that defines you. Your discipline is not just an abstract concept. It is something you literally build around yourself layer by layer every single morning. Fully dressed, armed, and coiffed, you are ready to move through your world. But even the simple act of walking is governed by a strict set of rules. You do not stride with a confident heel-to-toe gait. You do not swing your arms. A samurai in motion is a study in controlled, efficient, and near-silent grace. The goal is to move with quiet authority, not with aggressive, attention-seeking energy. You prepare to leave your room and walk down the long wooden corridor that leads to the main part of the house. The floors are made of polished wood that can creak and groan with every misplaced step. Your first lesson in samurai movement is to master the art of walking silently. This is achieved through a specific gait called suriashi, or sliding foot. Instead of lifting your feet high off the ground, you keep them close to the floor, sliding them forward with each step. Your weight is kept centered and low. The movement comes from your hips, not from pushing off with your toes. Your feet barely leave the surface of the floor. This technique accomplishes several things at once. First, it is incredibly quiet. A master of suriashi can move across a wooden floor without making a single creak. Second, it keeps your upper body perfectly stable and level. There is no bobbing up and down. This stability is crucial, as it would allow you to draw your sword and cut from a solid, balanced platform at a moment's notice. Finally, it looks incredibly dignified and controlled, a stark contrast to the bouncy, energetic walk of a commoner. This is the mainstream foundational technique for movement drilled into you from a young age. It is a fundamental part of the physical vocabulary of the martial arts, from kenjutsu to no theater. For you, it is simply the correct way to walk. As you begin to move down the corridor, your posture is paramount. Your back is straight, your shoulders are relaxed but not slumped, and your head is held high. Your chin is slightly tucked, and your gaze is directed forward, but not in a confrontational way. You are aware of your entire surroundings, not just what is directly in front of you. Your hands are not held stiffly at your sides. Your left hand might rest lightly on the scabbard of your katana, a casual but constant connection to your swords. Your right hand is free and relaxed. Now for a quirky and very practical tidbit about navigating your environment. The corridors of your house are lined with fusuma, the paper-covered sliding doors that separate rooms. The world you inhabit is one of right angles and intersecting planes. When you approach a corner, you do not simply round it. You pause and then you make a precise right angle turn. This is not just for aesthetic reasons. This technique, called kageashi or key-shaped steps, is a defensive measure. By making a sharp turn, you minimize the amount of time you are exposed to a potential threat that might be waiting around the corner. It prevents you from blindly walking into an ambush. Even in this era of profound peace, the muscle memory of a warrior class remains embedded in the very way you turn a corner in your own home. Historians still argue about how much this highly controlled way of moving was a practical holdover from a more violent time versus a purely aesthetic performance of samurai identity. Was the silent sliding walk truly about stealth and combat readiness in the peaceful streets of Edo? Or was it a self-conscious theatrical way of performing samurai-ness, a way to visually distinguish oneself from the clomping, unrestrained movements of the lower classes? It was likely a bit of both, a set of practical techniques that had over time acquired a deep symbolic and aesthetic meaning. You reach the end of the corridor. Your movement has been silent, fluid, and controlled. You have not disturbed the quiet serenity of the house. Your sliding feet have made no sound on the polished floorboards. Your posture has been one of serene alertness. You have turned the corner with the cautious precision of a soldier clearing a building, even though you are just on your way to have a cup of tea. This relentless focus on the minutiae of movement is exhausting to even contemplate for a modern person. We slouch, we stomp, we swing our arms. Our movements are dictated by efficiency and comfort. Your movements are dictated by discipline, tradition, and the constant quiet performance of your social role. To walk like a samurai is to be a living, moving embodiment of control. Every step is a statement, and you have just made yours without saying a single word. You have glided silently down the corridor, your every step a testament to your discipline. Now you arrive at the entrance to the main hall, the room where you will take your morning meal and conduct the business of the day. But you cannot simply walk in. The boundary between the corridor and the room is a significant one, and crossing it is a small but deeply important ceremony governed by its own set of intricate rules. Your destination is blocked by a fusuma, a paper-covered sliding door, and it presents a social and physical obstacle that must be navigated with perfect etiquette. You do not approach the door standing up. That would be clumsy and crude. Instead, you stop a short distance away and smoothly lower yourself into the formal kneeling position, seiza. You are now at eye level with the door pull. Kneeling to open a door is a profound gesture of humility and respect for the space you are about to enter, even if it is a room in your own house. It prevents you from looming over the threshold in an aggressive or dominant way. From your kneeling position, you reach out. Your right hand goes to the door pull, which is likely a beautifully crafted piece of metalwork. Your fingers grasp it lightly. You do not yank. You slide the door open just a few inches, a small controlled movement. Then you switch hands. You place your right hand back on your thigh and reach across your body with your left hand, placing it on the edge of the door. You now slide the door open the rest of the way to a width that is just enough for you to pass through comfortably. The entire motion is fluid, silent, and performed from a stable kneeling base. This is the mainstream correct way to open a sliding door. It is a dance of hands and body, a sequence drilled into you since childhood. It seems overly complex, but like everything else, it is designed to promote grace, control, and a sense of mindfulness about a simple everyday action. Now that the door is open, you must cross the threshold. And this is where a truly quirky and superstition-laden rule comes into play. You must never ever step on the grooved wooden track in which the door slides, shiki, or the raised wooden beam that frames the bottom of the doorway. These boundary lines are considered significant. To step on them is not just clumsy, it is deeply disrespectful. In some contexts, it was even believed to bring bad luck. The shiki is the dividing line between two spaces, and it must be honored. In some homes, it might even bear the family crest, making it a sacred piece of the architecture. Stepping on your host's family crest is a social blunder of catastrophic proportions. So how do you cross it? From your kneeling position, you place one hand on the tatami mat inside the room to stabilize yourself. Then you lead with the correct foot. If the room is to your left, you lead with your left foot. If it's to your right, you lead with your right. You do not stand up and walk in. You flow from a kneeling position outside the room to a kneeling position inside the room in one smooth, continuous motion, carefully avoiding any contact with the tracks or the frame. It's a surprisingly athletic move, a kind of low-level gymnastics required just to enter a room. Once you are fully inside the room and back in a perfect seiza position, the ritual is not over. You turn, still kneeling, to face the door you just came through. You place your hands back on the frame and slide it almost completely shut, leaving it open just a crack. Then you switch hands again and close it the final few inches with a soft, satisfying click. You never ever slam a door. The sound would be a shocking violation of the room's serenity. Historians still argue about the deeper meanings behind this complex doorway etiquette. Was the rule against stepping on the threshold purely a matter of superstition and respect for the house's architecture, or did it have a practical, defensive origin? By forcing a person to enter in a low, slightly awkward posture, it would make it much harder for them to launch a surprise attack on someone already in the room. A person crossing a threshold correctly is momentarily vulnerable, a subtle built-in security feature in a world where trust was a carefully negotiated commodity. You are now inside the main hall, kneeling silently on the tatami mat, facing the door you have just perfectly closed. The entire process of entering the room has taken perhaps 10 seconds, but it has involved a dozen distinct, carefully choreographed movements. It was a silent declaration of your good breeding, your discipline, and your respect for the space you now occupy. To a modern person, it's an absurdly overwrought way to walk through a doorway. To you, it is simply correct. It is the only way. Any other way would be an admission of barbarism. You have flawlessly executed the complex dance of entering the room. Now you are inside a silent kneeling figure in a tranquil space. The main hall is bare by our standards. There is no clutter. The only furniture might be a low lacquer table and some silk cushions. The focus of the room is the tokonoma alcove with its single perfect scroll of calligraphy and a simple flower arrangement. Your next task is to move from the doorway to your designated cushion and to sit. But of course, there is a right way and a wrong way to do even this. You cannot simply stand up and walk over to your seat. You must move across the room in a kneeling position. This is called shiko, or knee walking. It looks exactly as it sounds. You remain in the seiza kneeling position, and by lifting one knee at a time and sliding it forward, you can move across the floor. It is a slow, difficult, and frankly uncomfortable way to travel. It requires immense core strength and balance, but it is considered the height of politeness when moving in a formal tatami room. To stand up and walk would be to loom over others who might already be seated, an act of dominance and disrespect. Shiko keeps you on the same low level, preserving the harmony of the room. You knee walk gracefully to your cushion, your back straight, your hands on your thighs. You arrive at your designated spot and settle onto the silk cushion, a zabuton. But you do not plop down. You shift your weight, maintaining your posture. Now you must sit, and you will sit in seiza. This is the formal, correct, and for most Westerners excruciatingly painful way of sitting in traditional Japan. You are kneeling with the tops of your feet flat on the floor and your buttocks resting on your heels. Your back must be perfectly rigidly straight. Your hands rest palms down on the top of your thighs, your fingers together. Your knees are about 2 fists width apart. Your gaze is soft and directed downwards. This is the mainstream default posture for any formal occasion. From a tea ceremony to a meal to an audience with your Lord Seiza is the non-negotiable position of polite society. It is meant to demonstrate discipline, respect, and a calm, centered mind. It also incidentally makes it very difficult to fidget. The reality of Seiza for the uninitiated is pure agony. After a few minutes, your feet begin to fall asleep. Pins and needles set in. Your ankles scream in protest. Your knees ache. But you, as a samurai, have been trained in this posture since you were a child. You have spent countless hours in Seiza building up a tolerance for the discomfort. To you, it is not pain. It is simply a physical sensation, one that you can acknowledge and then ignore. To show any sign of discomfort, to shift your weight, to fidget, to groan, would be a catastrophic loss of face. It would be an admission that your physical sensations have triumphed over your willpower. It would be a failure of discipline. Here is a quirky tidbit about Seiza. While it is the posture of serene formality, it is also a posture of supreme readiness. From Seiza, a skilled swordsman can explode into action with terrifying speed. Because your center of gravity is low and your body is coiled like a spring, you can draw your sword and launch into a cut from a seated position faster than someone could rise from a chair. So while you sit in perfect placid stillness, you are also paradoxically in a state of maximum potential energy. Your serene posture is a mask for your constant latent readiness. Historians still argue about when Seiza became the dominant formal sitting posture. Some evidence suggests that in earlier, more chaotic periods, samurai might have sat cross-legged agura, which is a far more relaxed and comfortable position. The widespread adoption of the more demanding seiza during the peaceful Edo period seems to coincide with the samurai class's transformation from battlefield warriors to disciplined bureaucrats. Was the enforcement of this painful posture a deliberate tool of the shogunate, a way to physically instill the values of endurance, self-control, and conformity? Or did it evolve naturally as a formal expression of respect in a society that became increasingly stratified and rule-bound? You sit in perfect seiza on your cushion. The minutes tick by. You are waiting for your morning meal to be served. A faint numbness begins to creep into your feet, a familiar old friend. You acknowledge the sensation. You breathe. You focus on the calligraphy scroll in the tokonoma. You allow the feeling of discomfort to exist without allowing it to dominate your mind. It is just a feeling. Your will is stronger. You are a statue of disciplined stillness. Your posture is a silent, ongoing testament to your samurai spirit. Anyone else would be squirming in agony. You are simply sitting correctly. You remain in the perfect disciplined stillness of Caesar, a living statue of composure. The faint protest of your ankles is a distant, unimportant hum. As you wait for your meal, the shoji screen slides open again, following the same silent kneeling ritual you performed earlier. A servant enters moving with the same silent sliding suriashi gait. They carry a low lacquer tray with your breakfast. The servant kneels before you. And now a new and deeply important ritual must be performed, the bow. Bowing in your world is not a simple gesture of greeting. It is a complex, nuanced language, a physical expression of the intricate social hierarchy that governs your entire existence. The angle of your bow, its duration, and its context can convey respect, submission, gratitude, or apology. Getting it wrong can be deeply insulting. The servant, being of a lower social station, initiates the bow. They place their hands palms down on the tatami mat in front of them, forming a triangle with their thumbs and index fingers. They then lower their head and back their nose, moving towards the triangle on the floor. This is a deep, respectful bow, a saikirai. It is a clear acknowledgement of your superior status. You must now return the bow, but your bow will be different. To return a bow of equal or greater depth to a servant would be inappropriate. It would break the social order and create confusion. Your bow is a kire, a formal but less deep bow. You place your hands on your thighs, or perhaps lightly on the floor, and incline your head and back to an angle of about 30 to 45 degrees. It is a gesture of acknowledgement, a sign that you have received their respect. It is polite, but it maintains the proper social distance. You hold the bow for a moment, and then you both rise smoothly and in unison. This is the mainstream fundamental grammar of bowing. The junior person bows first and deeper. The senior person returns a shallower bow. This simple exchange, repeated thousands of times a day across Japan, is the glue that holds the entire social structure together. Now imagine a different scenario. A fellow samurai of equal rank enters the room. You would both bow to each other at the same time, to the same depth, likely the 45-degree kirai. This is a bow of mutual respect. If you were to meet a friend informally on the street, you might exchange a simple ishaku, a slight nod of the head and shoulders of about 15 degrees. It's the equivalent of a modern, "Hey, what's up?" Here's a quirky and slightly comical aspect of the bow. The deepest bow of all the dogaza is an expression of profound apology or a desperate plea. It involves dropping to your knees and pressing your forehead directly onto the floor. It is a complete abandonment of one's own dignity. While it was a powerful social tool, it also became the subject of satire. Comedic plays and stories from the period often featured cowardly or sycophantic characters who would throw themselves into a dogaza at the slightest provocation, much to the amusement of the audience. It was a gesture so extreme that its overuse could make one look ridiculous. Historians still argue about the subtle psychological effects of this hierarchical bowing culture. Did the constant physical act of lowering one's head to a superior create a genuinely deferential mindset? Did it reinforce the class structure in a way that laws alone could not? Or was it often a form of public performance, where the outer gesture of respect might conceal private feelings of resentment or ambition? The bow was a public transcript, but what was written in the hidden private transcript of the mind is much harder for us to know. The servant, having received your acknowledgement, places the breakfast tray before you and bows again, a slighter gesture this time. You give a small nod in return. They then exit the room, closing the fusuma with perfect silent grace. You are now alone with your meal, but the brief interaction was a microcosm of your entire social world. In the space of a few seconds, you have navigated a complex nonverbal conversation about status, respect, and power, all through the simple act of inclining your body. You haven't spoken a word, but a whole dialogue has taken place. The language of the bow is as important to you as the language of the sword. In this peaceful era, it is perhaps even more so. The wrong bow can cause more damage than a poorly aimed cut. The servant has departed, leaving you in the serene quiet of the room with your breakfast tray. But before you can even think about eating, you must navigate the most complex, treacherous, and rule-laden aspect of your entire day: speaking. The Japanese language of your time, especially the language used by and directed towards the samurai class, is a linguistic minefield. It is a system so intricate and so dependent on social context that a single misplaced word can be a declaration of war or an unforgivable insult. This system is known as keigo, or honorific language. Let's imagine that instead of eating alone, Your older brother has joined you. He is the head of the family, and therefore your social superior. You cannot simply say, "Good morning, did you sleep well?" The very structure of your sentences, the verbs you choose, the nouns you use, must all be changed to reflect his higher status. The language is divided into three main categories. The first is sonkigo, or respectful language. You use this when speaking about your superiors. You would not use the normal verb for to eat, tabaru. Instead, you would use a special respectful verb, meshiagaru. You wouldn't ask if he did something. You would use a special verb ending like nazaru. So your simple question becomes a complex linguistic puzzle of swapping out words for their more respectful equivalents. The second category is kenjogo, or humble language. You use this when speaking about yourself to a superior. When talking about your own actions, you use a different set of verbs that humble you and elevate the listener. If you were to give your brother something, you wouldn't use the normal verb agaru. You would use the humble verb sashigeru. You are linguistically prostrating yourself, making your own actions seem small and insignificant in comparison to his. The third category is tainigo, or polite language, which is marked by the familiar verb endings, masu and desu. This is the baseline level of politeness you would use with strangers or equals. For a samurai, this is the default setting, but it is constantly being overridden by the demands of sonkigo and kenjogo. This is the mainstream structure of formal Japanese. Navigating it is the primary intellectual challenge of your daily life. Your brain is constantly performing a complex social calculation before you even open your mouth. Who am I talking to? What is their rank relative to mine? Who are we talking about? What is their rank? Based on the answers, you select the correct vocabulary and grammar. It's like doing advanced algebra just to say hello. Now for a quirky and rather revealing detail about this system. Even personal pronouns are a minefield. There is no simple universal word for you. To address your older brother directly as you, anada would be shockingly rude. Instead, you would refer to him by his title, older brother, aniyu, or simply use his name with a respectful suffix. Similarly, there are many ways to say I, each with a different nuance of formality and status. You might use the formal watakushi, or the slightly less formal sesha, a word used almost exclusively by samurai. Your very sense of self is defined by the words you choose to describe it. Historians still argue about the primary function of this incredibly complex keigo system. Was it a tool of social control designed by the ruling class to constantly reinforce the hierarchy and make it impossible for people to speak to each other without acknowledging their relative positions? Or did it evolve as a way to promote social harmony, a linguistic lubricant that allowed for smooth, respectful interactions by preemptively diffusing potential conflict through shows of humility and respect? The system is so pervasive that it likely served both functions simultaneously. It was both a cage and a cushion. So as you sit across from your imaginary older brother, a simple conversation becomes a high-stakes performance. "Good morning, honored elder brother. I trust you partook of a restful slumber." You might say using the most respectful verb forms. He might reply using slightly less formal language to you, but still maintaining a level of politeness. You would then talk about your own actions in the humblest possible terms. The entire conversation is a carefully choreographed dance where the words themselves are less important than the complex web of status they reveal. To a modern English speaker whose language has largely shed its formal hierarchies, this seems impossibly exhausting. It's like walking on a linguistic tightrope where one wrong step means plunging into a chasm of social disgrace. But for you, it is second nature. It is the sound of order. It is the music of a perfectly structured society. The silence in your room is peaceful, but the language that fills that silence is a constant, unyielding reminder of your precise place in the world. The intricate dance of language has been navigated, or in your solitary breakfast blessedly avoided. Now imagine a different scenario. You have finished your meal and you are expecting a visitor, another samurai from a neighboring domain sent with a message for your lord. This interaction will be a critical test of your poise, a formal performance where every gesture is scrutinized. The servant announces his arrival and you prepare to receive him. The ritual begins before you even see your guest. You must first decide where he will sit. The seating arrangement in a Japanese room is not a matter of casual choice. It is a powerful statement of status. The seat of honor, the kamisa, is the spot furthest from the entrance, usually in front of the tokonoma alcove. This is the safest, most aesthetically pleasing, and therefore most prestigious spot in the room. The lowest seat, the shimoza, is the one closest to the entrance. As the host, you will take a humble position while guiding your guest to the kamisa. This is a gesture of respect. However, the guest, not wanting to appear arrogant, will initially refuse the seat of honor. He will insist that you, as the host in your own home, should take the better seat. You will then insist that he, as the honored guest, must take it. This polite, ritualized back and forth, a gentle struggle of competitive humility, can go on for several turns before the guest finally relents and accepts the seat of honor. This is the mainstream expected script for seating a guest. Now your guest enters, performing the same flawless doorway etiquette you did earlier. You both bow. He is escorted to the camisa. You take your seat at the shimoza. There is a moment of silence. This silence is not awkward. It is a sign of composure. Rushing into conversation is considered uncouth. After a respectful pause, you as the host will speak first, perhaps inquiring about the well-being of his lord or the rigors of his journey. The conversation will be formal, indirect, and filled with the complex honorifics we discussed. You will not talk about business immediately. The first part of any meeting is dedicated to these pleasantries, these humanizing rituals that establish a rapport before the true purpose of the visit is addressed. And here we find a quirky and fascinating tool of this interaction: the weather. Talking about the weather is not just meaningless small talk. In your culture, it is a sophisticated and important way to begin a conversation. By commenting on the beauty of the snow, the crispness of the autumn air, or the heat of the summer, you are demonstrating your attunement to the natural world and the changing seasons, a key aesthetic and philosophical value. It is a neutral, elegant, and shared topic that allows both parties to ease into the conversation without immediately diving into potentially contentious issues. A well-phrased observation about the cherry blossoms can be a work of art in itself. Historians still debate the true nature of these highly ritualized encounters. Were they genuine expressions of mutual respect and a desire for social harmony, or were they a form of psychological warfare, a politeness contest, where each samurai tried to outdo the other in his performance of perfect etiquette, seeking to gain a subtle upper hand through superior composure? A guest who was flustered by the host's perfect manners might be at a disadvantage when the actual negotiations began. The serene surface of the encounter could mask a tense undercurrent of rivalry and assessment. Your guest now feels it is the appropriate time to present the message he carries. He does not simply hand you a scroll. He will produce it from the folds of his kimono, where it has been kept in a special lacquer box or silk wrapper. He will place it on the tatami mat between you and then slide it respectfully towards you. You will bow in thanks and then slide it the rest of the way towards yourself. You will not open it immediately. To do so would seem greedy or overly eager. You will place it to your side to be read later, signifying that you value the presence of your guest more than the content of his message. The entire meeting might last for 20 minutes, but the actual exchange of information takes only a fraction of that time. The rest is ritual. It is a carefully constructed performance designed to affirm the social order, show mutual respect, and allow both parties to maintain their dignity and face. There are no loud voices, no grand gestures, no backslapping camaraderie. There is only the quiet, intense, and deeply stressful theater of samurai hospitality. The formal meeting with your visitor is proceeding with flawless, quiet precision. The air is thick with unspoken rules and mutual assessment. As the conversation continues, moving from the weather to more substantive topics, you and your guest will both make use of a small but incredibly significant object: the folding fan, or sensu. In the hot, humid Japanese summer, a fan is, of course, a practical tool for creating a breeze. But in this formal setting, its function as a cooling device is its least important quality. For a samurai, the fan is a prop, a social tool, and a subtle weapon in the arsenal of etiquette. It is the equivalent of a modern executive's expensive pen or a diplomat's perfectly knotted tie, an accessory that speaks volumes without saying a word. You have your fan tucked into your obi at your side. It is not a flamboyant, brightly colored fan. It is likely a gunsen or war fan, a more robust type of fan with outer spokes made of iron. While its original purpose was for a commander to signal troops on the battlefield in this peaceful era, it has become a symbol of your samurai status. It is a fan that hints at a martial purpose even if it is never used for one. The first rule of the fan in a formal setting is that you do not flap it around your face to cool yourself. To do so would be a sign of weakness, an admission that you are succumbing to the discomfort of the heat. It would be a breach of the stoic composure you are expected to maintain. Instead, the fan is used in a series of highly codified gestures. When you bowed to your guest upon his arrival, you would have first taken your fan from your obi, and while it was still closed, placed it on the tatami mat in front of you, creating a small formal barrier between you and him. This is a gesture of respect, signifying that you are setting aside your weapon as the war fan could be considered and creating a respectful space. Your guest would have done the same. This is the mainstream non-negotiable first move in any formal fan etiquette. Now as you speak, you might pick up the closed fan and hold it in your right hand, tapping it gently against the palm of your left hand to add emphasis to a point. This must be done with restraint. Overly demonstrative gestures with the fan would be considered vulgar. You might also use it as a pointer, not by pointing the tip directly at something which would be rude, but by indicating a direction with a graceful sweeping motion of the closed fan. Here's a quirky and rather clever use of the fan as a talking stick. In a group setting, the person who was speaking might hold their fan. When they were finished, they would place it down, signaling that the floor was now open for someone else to speak. It was a non-verbal way of managing the conversation and preventing people from rudely interrupting one another. The fan becomes a symbol of the right to speak. Historians still argue about the extent to which the fan was used as a secret communication device. Popular fiction and plays love the idea of lovers or spies sending complex coded messages to each other through a fan language, a flick here meaning, I love you, a tap there meaning, we meet at midnight. While it's a romantic notion, there is little concrete historical evidence to support the existence of such a complex, universally understood language. It's more likely that the way a person handled their fan gracefully or clumsily, calmly or nervously, was simply another data point in the constant subtle reading of another person's character and composure, rather than a form of Morse code. As your guest finishes making his point, he might open his fan with a soft, satisfying snap and hold it in front of his face, momentarily obscuring his mouth. This is not necessarily a sign of coyness or deception. It can be a gesture of modesty, particularly when laughing or smiling, as showing one's teeth too openly was sometimes considered impolite. It can also be a way to gather one's thoughts before speaking, a brief moment of private contemplation behind a paper screen. You watch your guest's fan. You note the quality of the paper. The craftsmanship of the bamboo or iron spokes the elegance of the painting on its surface. You note the way he holds it, the economy of his gestures. His fan, and his use of it, tells you as much about his breeding and discipline as his haircut or his command of honorifics. In your world, this simple object is laden with meaning. It is a weapon, a notepad, a talking stick, a shield of modesty, and a symbol of status. It is a perfect example of how the most mundane objects in your life have been transformed into tools for navigating a complex social universe. The fan in your hand is not for cooling. It is for communication. Your meeting with the visiting samurai concludes with the same meticulous bowing formality with which it began. He has departed, leaving you with the scroll and a sense of having successfully navigated a delicate social minefield. Now a new ceremony is set to begin, one that is perhaps the most iconic and misunderstood ritual in all of samurai culture, the tea ceremony or chinoyu. A servant has informed you that a tea master is waiting. This is not a casual affair, not the equivalent of grabbing a coffee. The tea ceremony is a highly structured, deeply spiritual and aesthetic experience, a choreographed performance where every single object, gesture, and word is freighted with centuries of tradition. It is the epitome of the samurai ideal of finding beauty and meaning in simplicity and discipline. You make your way to the chashitsu, the small, separate tea house located in your garden. The path leading to it, the roji, is intentionally rustic and simple, perhaps with uneven stepping stones. This is to encourage a sense of mindfulness and detachment from the everyday world as you approach. Before entering the tea house, you will wash your hands and rinse your mouth at a stone basin, a ritual of purification. The entrance to the tea house itself is a nijiriguchi, a small, low, crawling-in entrance. It is only about 2.5 feet high. To enter, you must get on your knees and bow your head, crawling through the small opening. This is a powerful act of enforced humility. No matter your rank, whether you are a simple samurai or the shogun himself, you must enter the tea house in the same humbled posture. This act serves a practical purpose as well. Before entering, you must remove your long sword, your katana, and leave it on a rack outside. The opening is too small to pass through with it. This means that inside the tea house, all are equalized and all are without their primary weapon. It is a space of enforced peace and equality. Once inside, you take your designated seat. The room is tiny, perhaps only 4.5 tatami mats in size. It is exquisitely simple, with walls of natural clay and a single scroll and flower arrangement in the tokonoma. The aesthetic is one of wabi-sabi, a beauty found in imperfection, impermanence, and austerity. The tea master or teishu enters. He moves with a silent, almost ghostly grace. The ceremony begins. He will bring in the tea utensils, the tea bowl chawan, the tea caddy, natsum, the tea scoop chashaku, the bamboo whisk chasen one by one. Each object is a masterpiece of craftsmanship. The tea bowl might be a rough, asymmetrical piece of rakuware, its value lying in its very imperfection. This is the mainstream structure of a formal tea ceremony, a tradition codified by masters like Sen no Rikyu centuries ago. The focus is on the four key principles: harmony, wa respect, k purity, sei, and tranquility, jaku. The tea master's every movement is a perfect economical dance. He purifies each utensil with a silk cloth, the fukusa, which he folds and unfolds in a complex prescribed pattern. He scoops the powdered green tea, the matcha, into the bowl. He ladles hot water from the iron kettle. Then he whisks the tea with the chasen using a rapid wrist-snapping motion until it is a frothy, vibrant green liquid. There are no wasted movements, no hesitation. It is a form of moving meditation. Now for a quirky and slightly intimidating detail, the etiquette of drinking the tea. The master will present the bowl to you, the most honored guest. You bow. You take the bowl, supporting it with your left hand and steadying it with your right. You must then rotate the bowl. The front of the bowl, its most beautiful side, will be facing you. To drink directly from the front would be arrogant, as if you were consuming its beauty. So you rotate it clockwise in 2 small turns so that you drink from a less important side. This is a gesture of humility and respect for the artistry of the bowl. You take 3.5 sips. The last sip is meant to be a slightly louder, appreciative slurp, which signals that you have finished. The tea is not sweet. It is bitter, grassy, and intense. After drinking, you wipe the rim of the bowl where your lips touched with your fingers, and then you rotate the bowl counterclockwise back to its original position so the front is facing the master once more. You then place it down to be admired. Historians still argue about the role of the tea ceremony in samurai society. Was it a genuine spiritual practice, a form of applied Zen that allowed warriors to find a moment of peace and enlightenment in a violent world? Or did it become a status symbol, a way for powerful men to compete with each other? Not on the battlefield, but through their collections of priceless tea utensils and their knowledge of obscure ceremony rules. For many, it was likely both. It was a space where political maneuvering and aesthetic appreciation were inextricably linked. The ceremony continues, each guest taking their turn to drink from the bowl. The only sounds are the whisking of the tea, the soft clink of ceramic, and the quiet, appreciative slurps. It is an experience of weaponized serenity. The discipline required is as intense as any martial art. The focus is absolute. In this small, simple room, through the quiet ritual of preparing and drinking a bowl of tea, you are participating in one of the highest art forms of your culture. The tea ceremony concludes, leaving you with a sense of profound, albeit rigidly structured, tranquility. The bitter taste of the matcha still lingers on your tongue. You return from the tea house to the main part of your residence, your mind clear and centered. It is now time for a more substantial meal, and with it another complex ballet of etiquette. Eating in your world is not merely for sustenance. It is another performance, another opportunity to display your discipline, grace, and refinement. You are once again seated in seiza before a low individual lacquer tray, a zen. The meal is served. It is a work of art. A typical formal meal, a honzen ryori, consists of many small dishes, each presented in a beautiful ceramic or lacquer bowl. There might be a clear soup, a dish of raw fish sashimi, a grilled dish, and a steamed dish, along with a bowl of rice and some pickled vegetables. The arrangement of the dishes on the tray is precise, following aesthetic principles of color, shape, and balance. Before you touch any food, you pick up your chopsticks, your hashi. You do not just grab them, you use both hands, lifting them together as a sign of respect. You hold them in your right hand, supported by your left, for a moment, and then you take them into your grip. The way you hold your chopsticks is a clear indicator of your breeding. They should be held elegantly towards the upper end and manipulated with your thumb, index, and middle fingers. Your other fingers should be relaxed. To hold them low down like a pencil is the mark of a child or a commoner. The first rule of eating is that you begin with the rice. You pick up your rice bowl with your left hand, bringing it closer to your mouth. You take a small bite of rice. Then you may have a sip of the soup, drinking directly from the bowl. Only after you have started with rice and soup may you begin to eat from the other dishes. This is the mainstream correct sequence for starting a meal. Now you are faced with a dizzying array of rules, a list of chopstick taboos known as kirabashi. These are the things you must never ever do with your chopsticks. You must not stab your food, sashibashi. Chopsticks are for picking up, not for spearing. You must not wave your chopsticks around in the air while talking, odoribashi. You must not lick your chopsticks, niburibashi. You must not hover your chopsticks indecisively over the dishes, unsure of what to take next, mayoibashi. This shows a lack of decisiveness. You must not pass food directly from your chopsticks to another person's chopsticks, hiroibashi. This is a gesture reserved for funeral rites when passing the bones of the cremated deceased, and to do it at a dinner table is a shocking, ghoulish taboo. And here's a quirky and particularly important rule. You must never stick your chopsticks upright into your bowl of rice, tatebashi. This is how a bowl of rice is offered to the spirits of the dead at a family altar. To do this during a meal is the equivalent of bringing a tiny coffin to the dinner table. It is the most ominous and offensive chopstick gesture possible. Historians still argue about the origins of these many food-related taboos. Were they based on ancient Shinto concepts of purity and pollution, where the acts of eating and the acts of dealing with death must be kept strictly separate, or were they simply a way of promoting graceful and elegant dining, a set of rules designed to prevent people from eating in a messy or animalistic way? The sheer number and specificity of the rules suggest a culture deeply concerned with imposing order and ritual on every aspect of daily life, including the most basic act of eating. As you eat, you do so silently and with great deliberation. You do not make loud chewing sounds. You pick up a small piece of food, bring it to your mouth, and eat it. You then place your chopsticks down on a small ceramic chopstick. Rest a hashioki before you pick up a bowl to drink from. It is incorrect to hold your chopsticks and a bowl at the same time. This forces you to eat slowly and mindfully. The meal is a quiet, contemplative experience. Each small dish is appreciated for its flavor, texture, and appearance. You are not just refueling your body, you are engaging in an aesthetic act. The rigid rules are not there to make eating difficult, they are there to make it beautiful. They force you to focus on the food, on the bowls, on the simple, graceful movements of your hands. When you are finished, you place your chopsticks neatly back on the hashioki. You do not leave a messy plate. You have eaten everything or arranged what is left in a tidy way. Your empty bowls and tray are a testament to a meal consumed with gratitude and perfect, unimpeachable manners. The meal has been consumed with perfect, silent grace. The lacquer trays have been cleared away by a servant, leaving the tranquil space of the room empty once more. Your guest from the earlier meeting, the samurai from another domain, has returned this time for a more informal but no less rule-bound purpose: to appreciate your swords. In your culture, a fine sword is not just a weapon. It is one of the highest forms of art, a near-sacred object embodying the skill of the smith and the soul of the samurai lineage it belongs to. To ask to see another samurai's sword is a sign of great respect and connoisseurship. To be granted this request is a sign of profound trust. The process of showing and viewing a blade is a ceremony as rigid and meaningful as the tea ceremony. You would never ever draw your sword from its scabbard in a casual or sudden way inside a home. That would be an act of extreme aggression. The etiquette of sword appreciation is designed to be slow, deliberate, and to make it physically impossible for any violence to occur. First, you must prepare. You retrieve a small kit from a drawer. It contains a piece of clean, soft rice paper, nugugami, a silk cloth, and a powder ball uchiko filled with the fine powder of a special type of whetstone used for cleaning the blade. You also lay out a clean, soft cloth on the tatami mat to rest the sword on. You sit in seiza facing your guest. You take your katana, your longsword, and place it on the mat between you, with the hilt pointing towards your guest. This is a crucial gesture of non-aggression. By offering him the hilt, you are making it impossible for you to draw the sword quickly, while making it easy for him to take it. You are showing that you trust him completely. You both bow deeply. Your guest will then reach forward and take the sheathed sword, holding it with both hands. He will admire the scabbard, saya, the hilt wrapping tsukaito, and the various metal fittings koshirai. These are all works of art in their own right. Now comes the most delicate part of the ritual, removing the blade from the scabbard. This is the mainstream correct procedure. The guest holds the scabbard in his left hand and the hilt in his right. He slowly, carefully draws the blade out, edge facing upwards. As the blade emerges, he must be careful not to let the razor-sharp edge touch the inside of the scabbard's mouth. The blade must emerge pristine and silent. Once the blade is free, he will hold it up to admire it. He must never point the tip of the sword at you or anyone else. The blade should be held at a slight angle with the tip pointing safely away. He will admire the hamon, the wavy temper line along the edge, which is the unique signature of the swordsmith. He will appreciate the jihada, the grain pattern in the steel itself. He does not touch the blade with his bare hands. The oils and acids from his skin would cause the highly polished steel to rust almost immediately. And here is a quirky and fascinating part of the etiquette: breathing. It was considered the height of good manners to place a piece of folded paper, akishi, in your mouth, or to hold it in front of your mouth while examining a blade. This was to prevent your breath with its moisture and impurities from fogging or landing on the precious steel. It's an almost surgical level of care, treating the blade as if it were a living, breathing, and highly sensitive entity. Historians still argue about the dual nature of the sword in samurai culture. Was it primarily a practical weapon, with its appreciation based on its effectiveness in combat, or especially during the long peace of the Edo period, did it become a purely aesthetic object, a piece of fine art whose martial purpose was almost entirely symbolic? The elaborate rituals surrounding its viewing suggest a shift towards the aesthetic. The sword became a subject of connoisseurship, like a fine painting or a rare piece of porcelain, its value determined by the fame of its smith, its history, and the beauty of its form, rather than its body count. After a respectful period of silent admiration, your guest will begin the process of returning the blade to its scabbard. This is as difficult as drawing it. He must guide the tip perfectly into the small opening of the saya, without the edge touching the sides. It must slide home with a soft final click. He will then place the sheathed sword back on the mat this time, with the hilt pointing back towards you, the host. This signifies that he is returning control of the weapon to you. You both bow again deeply. The ceremony is over. The soul of your family has been viewed, appreciated, and returned, all without a single word of boasting from you or a single careless touch from your guest. It was an interaction of profound trust, mutual respect, and shared appreciation for an object that represents the very core of your identity. The sword appreciation ceremony has concluded, a silent conversation of trust and respect played out through the handling of a sacred object. Now, as your guest prepares to take his leave, one final ritual must be performed. He has brought a gift for your lord, and you in turn have prepared a small gift for him as a token of hospitality. The exchange of gifts, like everything else, is a minefield of etiquette, designed to show humility and prevent the vulgarity of a direct transactional exchange. Your guest indicates that he has something to present. He does not simply pull a wrapped box from his sleeve and hand it to you. That would be as crude as a modern person handing over a gift with the price tag still on. Instead, he produces a small, beautifully wrapped object. The wrapping itself is an art form. It might be encased in a furoshiki, a decorative wrapping cloth, or swaddled in fine rice paper, and tied with an intricate symbolic knot of red and white cord called a mizuhiki. He will not hand it directly to you. To do so would be too forward. He places the gift on the tatami mat, not too close to himself and not too close to you, but in the neutral space between. He then slides it gently in your direction. As he does so, he will say something deeply self-deprecating. This is but a trifling, worthless thing. He might say, unworthy of your lord's gaze, but I hope he will deign to accept it. This verbal performance of humility is absolutely essential. To praise one's own gift would be the height of arrogance. You, as the receiver, must now play your part in this drama of humility. You do not grab the gift eagerly. You bow. You then slide the gift closer to you. You do not open it in front of him. That would suggest you are more interested in the object than in the sentiment behind it. You thank him profusely, while also minimizing the gift's importance to avoid making him feel overly burdened by your gratitude. You have gone to too much trouble, you might say. This is far too grand. This is the mainstream fundamental ritual of gift-giving. It is a slow, indirect, and highly verbalized process where the words spoken are almost the complete opposite of the true value of the exchange. Now it is your turn to present your gift to him. You have prepared a small token, perhaps a famous local confection or a fan from a well-known artisan. You have wrapped it with the same care. You perform the ritual in reverse. You place your gift on the mat, slide it towards him, and say, "This is a simple, tasteless item to trouble you with on your long journey home." He in turn will protest that it is too fine a gift that you shouldn't have before accepting it with a deep bow. Here's a quirky and very specific rule regarding the exchange of money. If a gift of money was ever given, for example, to help with travel expenses, it would never be given as loose cash. The coins or paper bills would be placed in a special small envelope called a shugi bukuro. This envelope would then be wrapped and presented with the same self-deprecating ritual as any other gift. The envelope acted as a purifying barrier, separating the clean symbolic act of giving from the dirty practical reality of money. To hand someone cash directly would be considered incredibly vulgar. Historians still argue about the economic and social function of this elaborate gift-giving culture. Was it a way of strengthening social bonds and creating networks of mutual obligation, a system that ran parallel to the formal economy? Or was it a form of soft bribery, where the exchange of worthless trifles was actually a high-stakes negotiation of favor and influence? In a society where direct requests and transactions were seen as impolite, the carefully calibrated gift was one of the primary ways that business, both personal and political, got done. The value of the gift had to be perfectly judged to reflect the status of the receiver and the nature of the desired relationship. Your guest now has your small gift. You have the scroll and the gift for your lord. The transaction has been completed without any crass discussion of value or purpose. The exchange was wrapped in so many layers of politeness and self-deprecation that it barely resembled an exchange at all. It was a shared performance of mutual humble respect. With this final piece of theater complete, your guest prepares for the final bows and his departure. You have successfully navigated another of the day's great social hurdles. You have proven yourself to be a man of taste, refinement, and perfect manners, all through the simple yet impossibly complex act of giving and receiving a small wrapped object. Your guest has finally departed, his exit as formal and precise as his arrival. The house returns to its state of quiet contemplation. You now have a task to complete, responding to the message your guest delivered. You must compose a formal letter, and this, like every other activity in your life, is an art form, governed by a strict and beautiful set of rules. You cannot simply dash off a quick reply. The act of writing is a reflection of your character, and it must be approached with the focus and discipline of a meditation. You retire to your study, a small clean room designed for scholarly pursuits. You sit once more in seiza before a low writing desk, a fuzuki. A servant has already laid out the 4 treasures of the study. For you, the brush feud, the inkstick sumi, the inkstone suzuri, and the paper washi. These are not mere office supplies. They are objects of beauty and connoisseurship. First, you must prepare the ink. You do not have a bottle of pre-made liquid ink. You must make it yourself fresh for every writing session. You take the inkstick, a hard solid block made from pine, soot, and animal glue, often decorated with carved characters or images and imbued with a subtle perfumed scent. You place a small amount of clean water into the shallow well of the inkstone, a heavy dark slate stone that has been carved with a flat surface and a depression. Then, the meditative process begins. You take the inkstick and, holding it perfectly upright, you begin to grind it against the inkstone in a slow circular motion. You do not rush. The goal is to create an ink of the perfect consistency and color, a deep, lustrous, absolute black. The sound of the inkstick grinding against the stone is a soft, rhythmic scraping sound. The faint, pleasant scent of the aged soot and perfume rises to meet you. This process can take several minutes. It is a time to clear your mind, to focus your thoughts, and to prepare your spirit for the act of writing. Rushing the ink making is a sign of an impatient and undisciplined mind, and the resulting poor quality ink will betray you on the page. This is the mainstream traditional method for creating ink, a practice that has been unchanged for centuries. The quality of a man's calligraphy was believed to be a direct window into his soul, and that quality began with the patient, mindful preparation of the ink. Once the ink is ready, you take up your brush. It is likely made from weasel sheep or wolf hair set into a bamboo handle. You hold the brush in a specific way, upright, held lightly between the thumb, index, and middle fingers, with the arm and wrist held off the table. The movement must come from the shoulder, not from the fingers. Now for a quirky and deeply significant aspect of the writing itself, the paper. You are writing on washi, a type of traditional Japanese paper made from the fibers of the mulberry tree. It is strong, absorbent, and beautiful, but the real art is in the format. A formal letter is not written on a single sheet, but on a long, continuous scroll of paper, a makimono. You will write your message in vertical columns from right to left. The letter itself is a masterpiece of formulaic politeness. It will begin with a seasonal greeting, a poetic reference to the current time of year, just like the one you used in conversation. In this season of falling maple leaves, you might begin. You will then inquire after the health of the recipient. Only after these lengthy mandatory pleasantries will you get to the actual point of the letter. The language will be highly formal, using the same complex keigo honorifics you would use in speech. Historians still argue about the literacy rates among the samurai class. While it is assumed that most samurai could read and write, the level of true calligraphic skill varied wildly. To be a master calligrapher was a sign of great culture and refinement, and was as respected as being a master swordsman. For a samurai who was a poor writer, composing a formal letter could be a source of great anxiety. He might hire a professional scribe or a more educated retainer to write the letter for him, much like a modern person might hire a professional to write their resume. You dip your brush into the fresh black ink. You hold it poised above the paper for a moment, visualizing the character you are about to write. Then, with a single fluid and unhesitating stroke, you begin. The brush dances across the paper, leaving a trail of beautiful, complex characters. Each stroke has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The pressure of the brush changes, creating a dynamic line that is thick in some places, thin in others. It is not just writing, it is painting. It is a performance of disciplined grace captured forever in ink on paper. The letter will end with another set of formal closing remarks and your signature. When you are done, you will carefully roll up the scroll and secure it, ready to be sent by messenger. The entire process, from grinding the ink to the final stroke of the brush, has been a ceremony of profound focus. The finished letter is not just a message. It is a physical embodiment of your education, your discipline, and your spirit. Your formal letter is complete, its ink slowly drying, a testament to your disciplined mind and steady hand. With your official duties for the morning taken care of, you have a moment for quiet contemplation. In your world, even the appreciation of beauty is an activity governed by its own strict set of rules. You decide to spend a few moments appreciating the art within your own home. You turn your attention to the tokonoma, the raised, recessed alcove that is the focal point of any formal Japanese room. This is not a space for displaying a cluttered collection of family photos or knickknacks. The tokonoma is a sacred space reserved for the display of one or at most two objects of profound beauty and significance. Today it holds a hanging scroll, a kakemono, featuring a single line of masterful calligraphy and a simple flower arrangement, an ikebana. To appreciate these objects correctly, you must first approach the tokonoma in the proper way. You do not walk right up to it. You stop several feet away and kneel, performing a respectful bow from the seiza position. This bow is not directed at a person, but at the art itself, and by extension at the spirit of the artist and the beauty of nature it represents. After the initial bow, you may move closer. You approach on your knees using the shiko knee walking technique until you are at a respectful viewing distance. You must never actually enter the raised alcove. The tokonoma is a stage and you are the audience. To step into it would be a shocking breach of protocol, like a modern museum goer climbing onto a platform to touch a Rembrandt. First, you contemplate the calligraphy scroll. It might be a line of Zen poetry written by a famous master. Your appreciation is not just about reading the words, it is about admiring the artistry of the brushstrokes. You observe the balance of the characters, the interplay of thick and thin lines, the energy and flow of the ink. You appreciate the three harmonies, the brush, the ink, and the paper all working together. You contemplate the meaning of the words and the spirit of the calligrapher who wrote them. This is the mainstream way of appreciating this high art form. It is a silent, intellectual, and deeply aesthetic experience. Next, you turn your attention to the ikebana. This is not just a bunch of flowers in a vase. It is a highly structured, asymmetrical arrangement designed to evoke a sense of nature and the changing seasons. Each element, the flowers, the stems, the leaves, the vase, has been carefully chosen and placed according to strict principles. The arrangement often represents the trinity of heaven Shin Mansoi and earth Hikai, with three main stems creating a dynamic triangular form. And here is a quirky and fascinating detail about ikebana etiquette. When appreciating a flower arrangement, it is considered poor form to peer too closely at the mechanics of it, to try and see how the stems are held in place by the hidden frog or kenzen. To do so would be like a magician's audience trying to figure out the trick. You are meant to appreciate the finished effect, the illusion of natural, effortless beauty, not the technical skill that went into creating it. The artifice should remain hidden. Historians still argue about the philosophical underpinnings of these aesthetic forms. Was the severe minimalism of the tokonoma a direct expression of Zen Buddhist ideals which value emptiness and simplicity? Or was it also a product of the sumptuary laws of the shogunate which often restricted the conspicuous display of wealth? A single perfect ceramic bowl in a tokonoma could be worth more than an entire mansion, but its value was known only to the true connoisseur. It was a culture of coded luxury, where immense wealth was displayed not through opulence but through sublime, understated taste. After you have spent sufficient time in silent contemplation, you must depart from the tokonoma with the same respect you showed upon arrival. You move backwards on your knees away from the alcove. Then at a respectful distance you perform another deep, formal bow. The ceremony of appreciation is complete. This entire process might seem cold and overly intellectual to a modern observer used to a more emotional, personal response to art. But for you, this structured, respectful approach is what allows for true appreciation. The rules and rituals are not there to stifle your enjoyment. They are there to elevate it. They create a framework that clears the mind of distractions and allows for a deeper, more profound connection with the object of beauty. You have not just looked at a painting and some flowers. You have participated in a ceremony that honors art, nature, and the human spirit's capacity to create and appreciate beauty in its most refined form. The quiet, aesthetic contemplation of the tokonoma has settled your mind. The day drifts on in a haze of peaceful, structured activity. Perhaps you have some administrative work to attend to, some accounts to review for your lord. But even in moments of leisure, the samurai mind is not meant to be idle or frivolous. Leisure, like everything else, is an opportunity to cultivate discipline and refinement. Let's imagine that in the afternoon a close friend and fellow samurai comes to visit, not for a formal meeting, but for a friendly game. The game of choice for men of your class is Go. Go is not a game of chance or explosive action. It is a game of profound strategic depth, a slow, quiet battle of territory and influence played out with black and white stones on a wooden grid. It is the perfect leisure activity for a samurai, intellectual, strategic, and almost entirely silent. You and your friend kneel on opposite sides of the goban, the thick wooden go board which sits on the tatami floor. The board itself is a beautiful object often made from rare kaya wood. The stones kept in matching wooden bowls called goki are satisfyingly smooth and cool to the touch. One set is made from black slate, the other from polished white clamshell. The etiquette of the game is as important as the strategy. Before the game begins, you both bow. The player with the black stones who goes first places the first stone on the board. He does not just place it, he picks it up between his index and middle fingers and places it on one of the grid's intersections with a firm, deliberate click. The sound of the stone hitting the wood is a key part of the game's aesthetic. The game proceeds in near silence. There is no trash talk, no triumphant shouts when a clever move is made, no groans of frustration when a group of stones is captured. Your expression must remain placid and unreadable, a perfect poker face. To show emotion, either joy in victory or anger in defeat, would be a sign of poor discipline. It would reveal that you are overly attached to the outcome, that your ego is invested in this mere game. The ideal is to play with a sense of calm detachment, focusing purely on the strategic beauty of the patterns on the board. This is the mainstream expectation for how a gentleman and a samurai conducts himself during a game. The game is long and slow. Each move is considered for many minutes. The only sounds are the rhythmic click of the stones on the board and the soft rustle of silk as you or your friend shifts position slightly. It is a battle of minds, a silent war played out in miniature. Now for a quirky and rather poetic leisure activity, the poetry circle. On another day, you might participate in a gathering to compose renga or haikai forms of linked verse. A group of samurai would gather, and one person would compose the first stanza of a poem. The next person would then have to compose a stanza that linked to the first one, and so on, with the poem being built collaboratively one link at a time. This required not only poetic skill, but also a deep understanding of complex rules about seasonal words, acceptable topics, and linking techniques. It was an intellectual and creative challenge of the highest order. Historians still argue about the role of these refined leisure activities in samurai life. Were games like Go and the composition of poetry a genuine escape from the rigid structures of their daily lives, a space for creativity and intellectual freedom? Or were they just another form of competition, another arena where samurai could vie for status and demonstrate their superior intellect and cultural refinement? A samurai who was a master Go player or a celebrated poet would gain immense prestige, so it's likely that even in leisure, the subtle currents of ambition and rivalry were always present. Back at the Go board, the game is reaching its conclusion. The board is a complex tapestry of black and white territories. It is clear that your friend, after a long and hard-fought struggle, has won. He has captured a larger territory than you. What is your reaction? There is no sigh of defeat. You do not flip the board over in a fit of pique. You look at the final position on the board. You calmly say, "I have lost," or a similar formal concession. You then perform a final deep bow to your friend, a gesture of respect for his superior skill. He returns the bow not with a triumphant smirk, but with a look of humble gratitude for the game. The game was not about winning or losing. It was about the shared experience of engaging in a beautiful, complex, and intellectually stimulating activity. You have exercised your strategic mind, you have practiced your self-control, and you have reinforced your friendship through a shared disciplined pastime. Even in leisure, you have been a perfect samurai. The afternoon of quiet strategic leisure has faded into the soft purple hues of evening. The game of Go is over, your friend has departed, and a sense of closure begins to settle over the day. But the rituals are not yet complete. The final major ceremony of your day is the evening bath, the ofuro. And this is not a quick functional shower to get clean. The Japanese bath is a deep, sensual, and meditative ritual designed for purification of the spirit as much as the body. You make your way to the bathing room. In a well-appointed samurai home, this would be a room constructed of fragrant, water-resistant wood, like hinoki cypress. The air is already steamy and filled with the clean, sharp scent of the wood. The centerpiece of the room is the tub, the furo, a deep, square wooden tub filled with steaming hot water. And here we come to the most critical and mainstream rule of the Japanese bath, one that is often misunderstood by outsiders. You must never wash yourself inside the bathtub. The tub is not for cleaning, it is for soaking, relaxing, and warming the body. To get into the tub while you are still dirty, covered in the sweat and grime of the day, would be to contaminate the pure, hot water. It would be a shocking and disgusting breach of etiquette. The cleaning happens before you get in the tub. Next to the tub, there is a small low stool and a washing area with a drain. You take a wooden bucket and fill it with hot water from the tub. You sit on the stool, a posture of humility, and you begin to wash. You douse yourself with the hot water from the bucket. You take a rough cloth and a simple vegetable-based soap and you scrub your entire body from head to toe. You scrub until your skin is pink and tingling. You are removing every last trace of the physical world from your body. Once you are completely clean, you must rinse thoroughly. You use the bucket to pour clean hot water over yourself again and again, ensuring that not a single bubble of soap remains on your skin. To carry soap suds into the pure water of the tub would be another serious infraction. Only now, once you are spotlessly clean, are you worthy of entering the tub. You step into the furrow. The water is hot, very hot, probably much hotter than a modern Westerner would find comfortable, perhaps as high as 110 degrees Fahrenheit or more. You do not splash. You enter slowly, letting your body acclimatize to the intense heat. You sink down until the water is up to your neck. And then, you do nothing. You simply sit. You soak. The heat of the water penetrates deep into your muscles, melting away any physical tension. The steam fills your lungs. The scent of the hinoki wood surrounds you. The day's many stresses, the rigid postures, the mental gymnastics, all of it begins to dissolve in the enveloping, near-scalding heat. This is a moment of pure, sensual release. Here is a quirky and charming detail of bathing culture, the family bathing order. In a typical household, the water in the tub is not changed for each person. The entire family will use the same bath water. Therefore, a strict hierarchy determines the bathing order. The guest of honor, if there is one, bathes first, then the master of the house, you, then the eldest son, followed by the other men of the household in order of seniority. The women bathe last, with the lady of the house going first, followed by her daughters. This system keeps the water cleanest for the most important people. It's a microcosm of the entire social structure played out in the steam of the bathing room. Historians still argue about the philosophical and social functions of the Japanese bath. Was its primary purpose hygiene in a hot and humid climate? Was it a form of hydrotherapy, with the intense heat providing real health benefits? Or was it a ritual with deeper roots in Shinto purification rites, where water is used to wash away not just physical dirt but also spiritual pollution, or kagare? The deep, almost sacred reverence with which the bath is treated suggests that it was far more than just a way to get clean. You sit in the tub, the steam swirling around you. You might place a small damp towel folded neatly on top of your head. This is thought to help prevent you from getting dizzy from the intense heat. You close your eyes. The sounds of the household are muffled. In this small wooden steam-filled room, you are completely present in the moment. You are not a samurai, not a bureaucrat, not a host. You are just a body suspended in blissful, purifying heat. The bath washes away not just the grime of the day, but the rigid roles you have been playing. For these few precious moments, you are simply clean. The deep, penetrating heat of the bath has cleansed you body and soul. The rigid postures and mental exertions of the day have dissolved into the steam. You emerge from the bathing room, your skin tingling and clean, wrapped in a simple cotton robe. The day is now officially in its final decline. It is time to reverse the elaborate process of armoring that you began this morning. It is time to undress. You return to your private chambers. The room is lit by a single soft light from an and in a paper-enclosed lamp. The atmosphere is quiet and subdued. Undressing like dressing is not a haphazard affair of dropping clothes on the floor. It is a mindful and orderly process that shows respect for the garments that have served you all day. You begin with the outer layers. You untie the intricate knot of your hakama straps. The decorative knot which took such care to tie must be untied with equal care. You pull the straps free and step out of the voluminous trousers. You do not just toss the hakama aside, you fold it. And folding a hakama is a complex art form in itself. You must carefully align the 7 pleats, the symbolic virtues of Bushido, so they lie perfectly flat. A properly folded hakama will retain its crisp pleats for the next day. A sloppily folded one will look like a wrinkled mess, a clear sign of a careless owner. You fold the garment into a neat, compact rectangle and set it aside. Next, you unwind your obi. The long silk sash is a valuable item. You coil it smoothly and carefully, ensuring there are no twists or snags in the fabric. You then untie the simpler date maki that holds your underrobe in place. Now you can remove the kusode, your main kimono. You shrug it off your shoulders, the silk sliding off your skin. This too must be folded with precision. A kimono is constructed from long rectangular pieces of fabric, and it is designed to be folded along these seams into a perfect flat rectangle. This not only prevents wrinkles, but is also the correct way to store the garment to protect the delicate silk. This is the mainstream expected way to care for your clothing. It is a daily chore that reinforces a sense of order and respect for your possessions. After folding the kusode, you remove your split-toed tubby socks. The final garment to be removed is your juban, the underrobe. As it is made of simple cotton and has been against your skin all day, this will be set aside for laundering. And here we find a quirky and rather sensible detail of Japanese clothing care. You do not launder your expensive silk kimono frequently. The washing process is harsh on the delicate fabric and hand-dyed colors. The whole point of the washable cotton juban is to protect the outer kimono, minimizing the need for it to be cleaned. A silk kimono might only be fully washed and restitched, a process called araihari, very rarely. Your daily hygiene is what keeps your fine clothes in good condition. Historians still argue about the economic implications of the kimono as a garment. Its rectangular construction meant that very little precious fabric was wasted in the cutting process. It could also be easily adjusted to fit different people, or unstitched and resewn into smaller garments for children, or repurposed into other items. Was this waste-not design a product of a culture that valued frugality and sustainability, or was it simply the most logical way to construct a garment before the advent of modern complex tailoring techniques? It was likely a combination of both practicality and a deep-seated cultural value of not wasting resources. Now you are left in just your fundoshi loincloth. You have shed the many layers of your public identity. The stiff, formal silhouette of the samurai has been deconstructed, leaving the simple human form beneath. The weight of the hakama, the constriction of the obi, the rustle of the silk, all are gone. It is a moment of physical release, a quiet exhalation at the end of a long day of disciplined performance. You are no longer a bureaucrat, a host, a game player. The roles have been folded and put away along with the clothes. You are simply a man in his private chambers at the end of the day. The final rituals of the night await, but this shedding of the day's armor is a crucial step. It is a return to a more basic, unadorned self, a quiet preparation for the formless world of sleep. You stand in the soft lamplight of your room, stripped of the day's formal attire, clad only in your simple fundoshi. The air is cool on your skin, a refreshing change from the many layers you wore all day. There is one final crucial ritual to perform before you can truly be at ease. You must put your swords, the very soul of your identity, to rest for the night. You approach the katana kake, the sword stand, where you will place your daisho. Just as there is a formal etiquette for putting on your swords, there is an equally formal etiquette for taking them off and storing them. You do not simply unbuckle a sword belt. You must once again perform a slow, deliberate ritual that shows reverence for the blades. First, you remove the katana, the long sword. You draw it from your obi, holding it with both hands. You do not place it on the stand immediately. This is an opportune moment for a brief inspection and cleaning. You sit in seiza and lay a soft cloth on the tatami mat in front of you. You place the sheathed sword on the cloth. You remove the blade from the scabbard with the same slow, controlled grace you would use when showing it to a guest edge-up, taking care that it does not touch the mouth of the saya. You then take a piece of clean, soft rice paper nugagami and wipe the blade from the base to the tip in a single smooth stroke. This removes any dust or moisture that may have accumulated during the day. This is the mainstream daily maintenance that every responsible samurai performs. A neglected, dirty, or rusted blade is the ultimate sign of a lazy and dishonorable warrior. After wiping the blade, you might reapply a very thin layer of fine oil like clove oil to protect the steel from rust. You would then dust the blade with the uchiko powder ball. The fine, abrasive powder helps to remove any stubborn stains or old oil. Another clean wipe with a fresh piece of rice paper, and the blade is pristine, its steel surface gleaming in the lamplight. Now for a quirky and deeply symbolic detail about storing your swords at night. When you place the katana on the stand, the hilt or tsuka should be on the left. This means that if you were to pick it up with your right hand, you would have to pick it up, turn it around, and then draw. It is a slightly slower, less aggressive position. It is a subtle nonverbal declaration that you are at peace within your own home and do not expect to be attacked in the night. To place the sword on the stand with the hilt to the right, ready for an instant draw, would be to sleep in a state of paranoia. It would be like a modern person sleeping with their loaded gun on the nightstand instead of locked in a safe. Historians still argue about the psychological relationship between a samurai and his swords. Was the sword truly seen as an extension of his soul, as the popular saying goes, or was it primarily a tool and a status symbol? The immense care, the daily rituals of cleaning, and the reverence with which the blades were handled suggest a relationship that went far beyond mere ownership. The swords were treated as honored partners, entities with their own spirit and dignity. They were fed with oil, cleaned with powder, and put to rest in a specific, respectful manner every single night. Having cleaned and oiled the katana, you slide it back into its scabbard with a final soft click. You place it on the lower rack of the katana cake hilt to the left. You then repeat the entire process with the wakizashi, the shorter companion sword. You inspect it, wipe it, and place it on the upper rack also, with its hilt to the left. The daisho now rests peacefully on its stand. The soul of the samurai is at ease. The physical embodiment of your power, your status, and your burdens has been respectfully set aside. It is a profound moment of release. For the duration of the night, you are separated from the tools of your trade. You are no longer defined by the steel at your side. You look at the two swords gleaming quietly in the lamplight. They are beautiful, they are deadly, and they are at rest. Their silent presence is a comfort, a reminder of who you are, but their placement is a declaration of peace. The house is secure. The weapons are stowed. The warrior can now finally prepare for his own rest. Your swords are at rest, their polished steel gleaming with silent dignity on the stand. The final vestiges of your public daytime persona have been stripped away and put in their proper place. Now only the most basic preparations for sleep remain. In a life defined by elaborate ritual, the process of preparing your bed is by contrast an act of stoic and beautiful simplicity. You go to the large closet, the oshir that is built into the wall of the room. Earlier this morning, after you had risen, your futon was folded and stored here. Now you retrieve it. You do not have a heavy permanent bed frame that dominates the room. Your sleeping space is portable, appearing only when it is needed. This allows the room to be a multi-purpose space during the day, a dining hall, a study, a reception room, and to transform into a bedroom only at night. This is the mainstream space-saving genius of the traditional Japanese home. You take out the futon, which is a thin cotton-stuffed mattress, the shikibuten. You lay it directly on the clean, smooth surface of the tatami mats. There is no box spring, no thick mattress. You will sleep on a surface that is firm, almost hard by modern standards, but which is considered healthy for the back. Next, you retrieve the quilt, the kakabuten. This is a thicker, heavier version of the futon, also stuffed with cotton, and it will serve as your blanket. It is often covered with a decorative silk or cotton cover. You lay this on top of the mattress. The final element is the pillow, the makura. And this is where we encounter a quirky and rather uncomfortable sounding piece of sleeping technology. Your pillow is not the soft, fluffy, feather-filled object a modern person would recognize. It is a firm, rectangular block often made of wood or porcelain with a small padded cushion on top where you will rest your neck. The purpose of this type of pillow is not to cradle your head in softness. Its primary function is to support your neck while keeping your head elevated in order to protect your complex, carefully waxed chonmage hairstyle. If you were to sleep on a soft pillow, your top knot would be crushed and ruined, requiring the entire laborious styling process to be redone from scratch the next morning. The hard makura ensures that your hair, the symbol of your status, remains pristine through the night. It is the very definition of sacrificing personal comfort for the sake of maintaining a perfect public image. Historians still argue about the quality of sleep that people actually got using these hard minimalist beds. Did the firm surface and neck-supporting pillow lead to a more restorative, healthy posture as traditional wisdom claimed? Or was it simply another form of physical discipline and extension of the Stoic samurai ideal that one should not be coddled even in sleep? For a culture that valued endurance and the denial of frivolous comforts, a soft enveloping bed might have been seen as a sign of weakness and decadence. You have now prepared your sleeping space. It consists of only 3 simple elements: a thin mattress, a heavy quilt, and a hard pillow. It is an island of austere comfort in the middle of the empty room. It is a bed that has been assembled, not just made. The room has completed its transformation from a public space to a private one. You stand for a moment looking at the simple bed laid out on the tatami floor. It is a far cry from the elaborate curtained 4-poster fortress of your European contemporaries. There are no layers of soft linen, no downy pillows to sink into. It is a statement of simplicity, practicality, and discipline. It is a bed that says sleep is a necessity, not an indulgence. It is the perfect bed for a samurai. And now you are ready for the final step, preparing your mind for the quiet oblivion of the night. Your sleeping space is prepared, a simple, austere island on the vast empty sea of the tatami floor. The house is silent. The swords are at rest. The day's armor, both physical and social, has been shed. All that remains is the final and perhaps most important ritual, the preparation of the mind. For a samurai, sleep is not something you simply fall into out of exhaustion. It is a state you enter with the same mindfulness and discipline you apply to everything else. You do not immediately lie down. You sit and seize one last time at the foot of your freshly laid out futon. The only light comes from the soft, warm glow of the andon lamp, casting long, gentle shadows across the room. The air is cool and still. This is your time for quiet reflection, a final accounting of the day. You might close your eyes and simply focus on your breathing. You follow the breath as it enters your body and as it leaves. This is a simple form of zazen or seated meditation, a practice deeply ingrained in the Zen Buddhist tradition that heavily influenced the samurai class. The goal is not to stop your thoughts, but to simply observe them without judgment, like clouds passing in the sky. You acknowledge the day's events, the meetings, the conversations, the meals, the games, and then you let them go. You release your attachment to the successes and failures of the day, striving for a state of mental emptiness or mushin. This is the mainstream idealized method for achieving a peaceful state of mind. It is the mental equivalent of the cleansing bath you took earlier, washing away the grime of conscious thought and emotion. As you sit in meditation, you might contemplate one of the core tenets of Bushido. Perhaps you reflect on the concept of fudoshin, the immovable mind, a mind that remains calm and untroubled even in the face of adversity. You consider whether you upheld this ideal during your day. Did you remain composed during the go game? Did you show perfect, unruffled hospitality to your guest? It is a quiet, internal moral inventory. And here we find a quirky and rather dark aspect of a samurai's nightly thoughts. It was said that a true samurai should live his life in such a way that he is always prepared to die. Some texts advise that a samurai should spend a few moments each night contemplating his own mortality, imagining his own death in various scenarios. This was not meant to be a morbid or depressing exercise. On the contrary, by confronting and accepting the reality of death on a daily basis, you would be freed from the fear of it. If you have already accepted death, you can live your life with true courage, decisiveness, and freedom. It is a radical form of mental preparation. Historians still debate how widespread this practice of nightly death meditation actually was. Was it an ideal promoted in philosophical texts or a common practical exercise? It's a difficult question to answer as it deals with the most private internal thoughts of individuals. However, the prevalence of this idea in samurai literature suggests that the relationship with mortality was a central pillar of their psychological world, starkly different from our modern tendency to push such thoughts as far away as possible. You finish your meditation, your mind feels calm, settled, and clear. The day has been put to rest. You are at peace with your actions, and you are prepared for whatever the next day or the great unknown may bring. Now, and only now, do you move to your bed. You slip under the heavy kakabuten quilt. You lie on your back and you place your neck carefully on the hard, supportive makura pillow, preserving your top knot. The futon beneath you is firm and solid. The quilt is a comforting weight. You extinguish the lamp, plunging the room into a soft, deep darkness. The day, which began with the pale gray light of dawn and 1,000 tiny rules, now ends in silence and simplicity. There are no more roles to play, no more rituals to perform. You have earned your rest through a day of relentless discipline, and as you lie there in the cool, quiet darkness of your Japanese home, you let go. You release your mind, you release your body, and you drift into a deep, dreamless, and profoundly peaceful sleep. And now as your own journey through the life of a samurai comes to its end, perhaps you can feel a sense of that same quiet order settling over you. The complexities of your own day can be set aside, folded, and put away like a fine kimono. The endless noise of the modern world can fade, replaced by the silence of a tranquil garden. There is nothing more you need to do, nothing you need to be. You can simply rest, supported and secure, and allow the peaceful, disciplined stillness of the samurai's night to guide you into your own deep and restorative sleep. Let the world dissolve and just be.